Okay, so yesterday we have found out the expression of, okay, this is for inelastic collision. In case of inelastic collision, the kinetic energy is not conserved. That is, some part of the kinetic energy is converted into some other forms of energy like light energy, heat energy, etc. or sound energy. Okay, so this is for inelastic collision. We are continuing the same thing. Okay, loss of kinetic energy we have found out. This is the kinetic energy before collision. This is the kinetic energy after collision. Okay, so here we have found out the loss of kinetic energy. Okay, now today we'll find out the ratio of final kinetic energy to the initial kinetic energy. Initial means before collision. Final means after collision. Okay, so divide these two. What do we get? Which is equal to half m1 u1 m1 square u1 square upon m1 plus m2 divided by half m1 u1 square. Hurry up. What do you get? You get it to be m1 upon m1 plus m2. Are all getting this? So this is the ratio of the final kinetic energy to the initial kinetic energy, or you may say the kinetic energy after collision to the kinetic energy before collision. Okay, so we have completed this chapter. Now take out your book, few questions which you have to do. I'll write down on the board. Okay, here on page number 134 to 137. Page 134 to 137 are the NCERT exercise questions of this chapter, work, energy and power. So here you'll do question number 1. I'm writing down the questions which you'll do it. Okay, then question number 4, 6, 7 and 8. Nine, 10, 9 to 11. Leave question number 12th, 13th. Okay, 14th, 15th and 16th. Okay, 17th and 18th can also be done. 17th, 18th. Question number 25. Okay, only these many. Let's do few questions over here. Let's discuss. Let's do question number 9. A body is initially at rest. It undergoes one-dimensional motion with constant acceleration. The power delivered to it at time t is proportional to. Okay, the rest questions you will solve it yourself. Any doubt? You can ask me tomorrow or on the coming turns. Let's do few questions and then we'll start the next chapter. Okay, a body is initially at rest. That is, the initial velocity is given to be 0. It undergoes one-dimensional motion with constant acceleration. So what is given in the question? That the acceleration is constant. You have to find out the expression of power and how is it related to time t. Okay, the expression of power first you will find out in terms of time t, and using all this that these are constant, you will find out that how is this power related to time t. We know that power is equal to work done upon time taken. Work done is equal to force into displacement. Work done upon time taken. Work is force into displacement. Okay, now here force we know is equal to mass into acceleration. How can the acceleration be written? Acceleration is equal to change in velocity upon time, that is v minus u upon t. U here is 0. So it is equal to v upon t. Velocity is the rate of change of displacement, that is displacement per unit time. So velocity is displacement per unit time. Displacement upon time into time. This you can write it as t square. Okay, so here we see that okay, power delivered with respect to time t. Here we have to find out. So power is equal to m into, okay, this should be acceleration is constant. So this can be in terms of acceleration. Okay, this you can substitute in terms of acceleration only. Okay, this can be done according to question number. This is question number 10. Okay, once again, let's do it. Okay, the acceleration is constant. Force into displacement upon time. Force can be written as mass into acceleration into displacement. Acceleration is constant, mass is constant. Okay, so power, displacement, again find out in terms of acceleration or in terms of velocity, so that we can find out how is power related to time. Okay, power is equal to force into velocity. This can be written as force into velocity. Velocity is equal to displacement per unit time, can be written as velocity. Now velocity you can change it in terms of acceleration. We know that acceleration is equal to v minus u upon t. U here is 0. So acceleration is equal to v into t. So v is equal to a into t. Okay, so m into a square into t. Mass is constant. Mass of any object remains constant. Acceleration given in the question is constant. So we have to bring this term in, bring this equation in such a term that all this should be constant. Mass is constant, acceleration. So power is, how is it power related to time? Power is directly proportional to t. Okay, so which option is correct? The second option is correct. Okay, the same way you can do question number 10th also. A body is moving unidirectionally under the influence of the source of constant power. Now here the power is constant. Displacement in terms of time t. Displacement in terms of time t. Now the equation which you will form, there the power is constant. So the power can be as such in the equation, because given in the question that like here the acceleration is constant. So the acceleration can come in this equation. Okay, constant power. Power is constant. Power is equal to work done upon time. Force into displacement upon time. Force can be written as mass into acceleration. Okay, here it is not given that the acceleration is constant. So acceleration we have to convert it in terms of displacement and time. Acceleration is velocity upon time, and velocity is equal to displacement per unit time. So s upon t into t square. Okay, now here power into t cube is equal to m into s square. Now see this equation. In the question it is given that power is constant, mass of the object remains constant, and now what is the relation between s and t, displacement and time t? S square is directly proportional to t cube. So s is proportional to t raised to the power 3 by 2. So how is the displacement related to time? S is directly proportional to t raised to the power 3 by 2. So here you have to bring the equation in such a way that whatever is given in the question, which is constant, okay, that can come in this equation. The other terms like mass we know is constant, mass can come. The other terms we have to eliminate it. Question number 11th. A body constrained to move along the z-axis. Force is given. Okay, what is the work done in moving through a distance 4 meter along z axis? Okay, so the distance moved can be written as 4 I cap. The displacement can be written as along z axis 4 k cap meters. Now work done is F dot S. So 3 into 4, how much it will be? 12 joules. Okay, this way you can do it like in question. Let's do one more. Question number 16. Two identical ball bearings in contact with each other and resting on a frictionless table hit each other with initially with a speed v. If this collision is elastic, which of the following is possible after collision? Okay, like there are 3 balls, 1, 2 and 3. And if the collision is elastic, after collision also, some few situations are given. Okay, now before collision, what is given that only one ball, the first ball is moving and the second and third are at rest. The first ball is moving with a velocity v, whereas the second and third ball are at rest. Okay, if the collision is elastic, what is the condition? The kinetic energy before collision should be equal to kinetic energy after collision. So what is the kinetic energy before collision? Yeah, only the first ball is moving, second and third are at rest. That is, their velocity is 0. So before collision, the total kinetic energy of the system, kinetic energy of the first plus kinetic energy of the second ball plus the third ball. Only the first one is moving. So half m into v square. Okay, each ball has the same mass. They are identical. Now after collision, there are 3 cases. In the first case, the first ball is at rest and the second and third both are moving with the velocity v by 2. So in the first case, what is the kinetic energy after collision? Half m into 0 square for the first ball. Second ball, half m into v by 2 whole square. The third ball, half m into v by 2 whole square. Half m you can take out common. Okay, v square upon 4 plus v square upon 4. Yes, what do you get? Half m, take the LCM, 4, v square plus v square, 2v square, 2v square upon 4 is v square upon 2. Is this equal to kinetic energy before collision? If it is equal, then only the collision is elastic. Here we see that before collision, the kinetic energy is half mv square, but here we are getting the kinetic energy after collision as 1 by 4 mv square, which is not equal to the kinetic energy before collision. So the first case is not for the elastic collision. So it is not an elastic collision. The second case, in the second case, we'll find out the kinetic energy after collision. In the second case, you can see here the first and the second ball remain at rest. Only the third ball is moving with a velocity v. So what is the kinetic energy? Half mv square, which is equal to kinetic energy before collision. So this collision is elastic. The second case is for the elastic collision. Whereas in the third case, each ball is moving with a velocity v by 3. So what is the total kinetic energy of the system? That is of all the 3 balls after collision, half m, you can take it outside, half m. Okay, v square upon 9 plus v square upon 9, how many times? 3 times. Okay, the first ball has a kinetic energy half m v by 3 whole square. Second ball half m v by 3 whole square, which is v square by 9, v square upon 9. Okay, and this is equal to half m, take the LCM, 9, v square plus v square plus v square, 3v square upon 9, that is v square upon 3. Again, this is not equal to the kinetic energy before collision. So this collision is also not elastic. Okay, only the second case is for the elastic collision. Okay, Then let's do one more. Question number 17. A bob A of a pendulum released from 30° to the vertical hits another bob of the same mass at rest on the table as shown in the figure. How high does the bob A rise after the collision? Neglect the size of the bobs and assume the collision is elastic. Okay, the figure is made. The first A ball of mass M, okay, it is taken to a height h and then released. It hits another identical ball of the identical means of the same mass, same material. Okay, hits the ball B. Okay, now it is asked that how high does the ball A go? We have discussed few cases when the masses are equal. What happens? They exchange their velocities. This is moving with a velocity v, okay, and hits the second ball which is at rest. What happens when the masses are equal? They exchange their velocities. That is, the A ball will come to rest and the B ball will start moving with the velocity of the first ball. That is, B will start moving with the velocity v. Okay, so whenever the masses are equal, the bodies exchange their velocities. Okay, so before collision, the first ball is moving with the velocity, the A ball is moving with the velocity v, whereas the second ball is at rest. Both are of equal mass. So after collision, when it hits the second ball, okay, this is not suspended, this is just kept on the table. When it hits the second ball, what happens? They exchange their velocities. That is, the first ball will come to rest, okay, will take the velocity of the second ball, and the second ball, that is the B ball, will take the velocity of the first ball. They exchange their velocities. Now the B will start moving with the velocity v and A ball will come to rest. That is, now the A ball will be at rest only, okay, it will not move at all. Okay, let's do one more question. The rest questions you will try yourself. Question number 25. Two inclined frictionless tracks, one gradual and the other steep, meet at point A where the stones are allowed to slide down from the rest, one on each track. Will the stones reach the bottom at the same time? Will they reach there with the same speed, given theta 1 is 30° and theta 2 is 60° and the height is 10 meters? Let's draw the figure. Okay, so a ball is inclined from two inclined planes. One, okay, this one is less steeper and this angle theta 2 is given as 60° and theta 1 is given as 30°. Two balls are dropped from the height h. They reach the bottom B and C. Okay, the first cases, okay, in the first thing you have to find out which one will have more speed when they reach the bottom. Okay, the first ball, the second ball, both identical balls, they are slided down from these two inclined planes. The one which is more steeper, theta 2 is more steeper, that is angle is 60°, theta 1 is less steeper, angle is 30°. What will be their speeds? Which one will have more speed when they reach the bottom? The one which is more steeper, that is the one which is having an angle theta 2, or the other one which is having an angle theta 1. You can unmute and give your answer with the proper logic. Okay, both are dropped from the same height. H is given as 10 meters or 10 centimeters, whatever it is. Okay, let us assume that the height is 10 meters. We have studied transformation of energy and the principle of conservation of energy. Which energy do these two balls possess here at the top? They have potential energy. When they reach the bottom, potential energy gets converted into the kinetic energy. Okay, so the potential energy at the top will be equal to the kinetic energy at the bottom, when the balls reach at the bottom, the kinetic energy, this potential energy gets converted into kinetic energy. Okay, for the first ball, the potential energy is mgh. Both are identical, that is both have the same mass and both are dropped from the same height. Okay, half m, let the speed at the bottom is v1. Okay, so the whole of the potential energy gets converted into the kinetic energy. Now for the second ball, which is dropped from the inclination more steeper, that is theta 2 is 60 degree. For that ball, again the potential energy at the top is mgh, because both are identical, that is both have the same mass, is equal to half m into v2 square. Oh, okay, looking from these two equations, what do you get? v1 square is equal to v2 square, that is v1 is equal to v2. That is both will have the same speed when they reach the bottom. Okay, so when they reach the bottom, both will have the same speed. Okay, also it is asked that which will take less time to reach the bottom. Okay, will they reach with the same speed? Yes, they will reach with the same speed. Will the stones reach to the bottom at the same time? Will they reach at the same? No. Okay, which one will take less time?
60 degree one.
Yes, the angle, the one which is more steeper, that is the one which is having an angle 60 degree, that will take less time. Why? Because the acceleration will be more, so it will take less time, so it will reach first. Okay, the rest questions you will solve it yourself. Any doubt you can ask on the in the coming turns. Today we'll start the next chapter, chapter 7, system of particles and rotational motion. Okay, system of particles and rotational motion. Okay, till now we were studying about a single particle. Now we'll study about a rigid body. Chapter number 7. Okay, system of particles. That is any body which we call it as a rigid body. Okay, which is composed of a number of particles. Such a body we call it as a rigid body. So a rigid body is one which constitutes a number of particles, which has number of particles. Till now we were studying that a particle is moving with a constant acceleration or with constant velocity. So we were discussing about a single particle. Now a system of particles together, we call it to be a rigid body. And the interparticle distance does not change. Whenever the force is applied, the interparticle, that is the distance between the two particles, does not change. Okay, such a body we call it as a rigid body. For example, when you open a drawer, okay, you are applying the force, the distance between the particles, the whole drawer comes out when you pull the drawer. Okay, but the distance between the particles, that do not change. So such a body we call it as a rigid body. So write down rigid body. Write the heading rigid body. Write down a body consisting a number of particles. A body consisting of a number of particles whose interparticle distance, that is the distance between the particles, whose interparticle distance does not change when the force is applied on the body. When the force is applied on the body. Okay, now there are a number of particles. So these particles are also exerting force on each other. Okay, and suppose we apply some force from outside. Due to the external force, the body will come in motion. But due to the internal force, there won't be any motion of the body. Okay, there are a number of particles in the rigid body, and these are also exerting force on each other. But due to this internal force, there won't be any motion of the body. Okay, for example, that drawer, it consists of a number of particles. But due to that internal forces, the body doesn't move. But when you apply a force externally, then only the body moves. Okay, so write down, there is no motion of the body. There is no motion of the body due to internal forces. There is no motion of the body due to internal forces. The body comes in motion. The body comes in motion only due to the external force. The body comes in motion only due to the external force. Okay, now we'll discuss the types of motion of a rigid body. Types of motion of a rigid body. The first one is translatory motion. Okay, as we know that translatory motion is a straight line motion. That is, all the particles will move with the same velocity. Whenever the external force is applied, all the particles will move with the same velocity. For example, when you are opening the door, it's not that one particle is having some other velocity, the other particle some other velocity. All the particles will have the same velocity. So whenever the external force is applied, what happens? All the particles will have the same velocity, and so all the particles will have the same type of motion. Okay, same straight line motion. So write down translatory, the types of motion. The second will be the rotatory motion. Okay, first write down translatory motion. Write down all the particles will have the same velocity. All the particles will have the same velocity when external force is applied. When external force is applied, and they move in a straight line. And they move, all of them move in a straight line. Next is rotatory motion. Okay, now in this case, all the particles will be moving in the circular path about a fixed axis of rotation. Okay, about a fixed line, all the particles will be performing circular path. Such a motion, we call it as a rotatory motion. So write down, all particles move in, circular paths, about a fixed axis of rotation. About a fixed axis of rotation. Okay, for example, the ceiling fan, all the particles, they move in circular paths about a fixed axis of rotation. The third one is combination of translatory and rotatory motion. Combination of above two. Combination of translatory and rotatory motion. Okay, in this, the particles are moving in the circular path as well, they are moving forward. Okay, so that is the combination of the above two. For example, tire, any automobile vehicle tire, which is moving forward, the particles are performing circular motion, and as well they are moving in the straight line motion also. So this is the combination of the translatory and rotatory motion. So you can write down the particles moving in circular path, as well moving forward, Okay, it's the combination. For example, motion of a wheel of a or motion of a tire of a car. Motion of a tire of a car. So it is the combination of both types of motions. Okay, next, tomorrow we'll discuss center of mass. Okay, center of mass. Any rigid body has some point in between where the whole mass of the body is supposed to be concentrated. That point we call it as the center of mass. Okay, for geometrically shaped figures, it will be at its geometrical center. Okay, so this will continue tomorrow.